5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, I am Matt Marjanovich with Christian Magazine. This is my son, John Matthew, and I am with Dale and Troy. Oh my goodness. The last names, I forgot.
Thompson. Yeah.
Sweet.
Thompson. Okay, guys, so we're going to show the audience. We are fans of Bride. So this is some of the stuff that I have of theirs. And this is my son, who is one of the new generations. And so I don't know if Troy and Dale have had an actual interview where we've discussed a new generation, but that's going to be part of the lineup of questions here. But before we get started, I'd like to open with a word of prayer, if that sounds okay to you guys. So, all right. Well, dear glorious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity to be used as vessels for you, Lord. I thank you so much for Troy and Dale for over 40 years of ministry that they've done through their music. Lord, we know you are Jehovah Jireh, our provider. We know that you are Jehovah Rapha, our healer, and Jehovah Nisi, our banner. I just thank you so much for all that you do, and we pray over this interview in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. All
Amen.
right. Well, the first question that we have is if you'd like to share with our audience, maybe tell us about your path to Christianity and the story behind the creation of your band.
Well, Troy and I had similar upbringings, of course, being brothers. So we were raised in a originally a Methodist church, and we attended Methodist Sunday morning services, for years and years and years. And actually, at an early age, we were already playing music in church, doing gospel hymns and such. And we both had our born again experience, while uh, in church. And but by that time, I had switched over to a more of an Assembly of God type, non-denominational. And so, probably about 12 years old for me, I felt like I was called to do something. And there we go. We had a little glitch, but I felt like that. I was being called to do something. So, at about age 14 or 15, I started having church in my garage in the neighborhood. So we were having not just Bible studies; it was full on church where I'd get up and sing and minister the word or whatever. And I had a little ministry called Spread the Word, and I did pamphlets, and I would just saturate the community with these little pamphlets of the word, and put it on. Go to the shopping malls and put it on the windshields of the cars. So both of us have been very active, and we knew our calling. We didn't know exactly, but we knew that we were called to do something more than just be an attendee. We were supposed to, be more like in leadership roles. So we didn't even think about it. We just took the bull by the horns and and went with it.
Yeah, we didn't really have a guide to go by, we were kind of making it up as we went. So,
Wow. Yeah, that's just amazing to me. I was actually baptized in an Assembly of God church when I was 16, and my dad grew up Catholic and pretty much parted ways with that. We were non-denominational growing up, and it's been 40 years. I mean, that's just such a tremendous thing to have a band for that long. And considering brothers, he has a sister, so I know about sibling rivalry, and you guys always just seem to get along so amazingly. And I mean, if it's okay to get a little personal, you guys actually live together right now because I think
Yeah,
your house in New Zealand is up for sale.
yeah, yeah.
Anyone need a good house in New Zealand? I'm sure it's a great house.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah, we've lived here with Troy and his wife since November. We came off a tour. We were touring with Petra in Brazil in October. Came off of that tour, and then we had to be back in the States for my wife's immigration status. So we went to back to New Zealand. We packaged up our dogs. We got all of our affairs in order, and we flew over and made it in 2 days ahead of when we would have had to start the whole immigration process over again. So they
oh,
didn't give us a big window to get into the States. So we were a bit rushed. So the house is being taken care of, but we're hoping it sells hopefully this month. It's going up for auction. So
wow.
we're gonna try to get out from under that. It's kind of right now it's become more of a burden to have it than not. So if we
yeah, it's
get rid of that,
hard to sell a house 10,000 miles away.
yeah,
Yeah, I could imagine. But yeah, I'm sure you've been asked many times, and why bride, but obviously the bride of Christ. But I've got a different question. In 1983, when you established, you actually called yourself the Matrix, I believe. What was behind that name?
that was Troy's vision at that point.
Yeah, it was just a name that was kind of in vogue, and come to find out there were other bands called Matrix. It was, one of those things that, we were all talking about entropy and just whatever at the, it's kind of scientific things at the time, and you deal with matrices and math and whatnot. So it seemed like a cool name. And when we finally got signed, we found out there was already another matrix. We thought changing the I to a Y would be okay, but they said, no, we need to get you a whole new name.
And it did spark, a trilogy of movies.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that they inspired those movies,
Yeah, it inspired them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But when I Google bride, I always come up with wedding stuff comes up all the time.
Yes.
I have to say bride band. And
Yes.
then I think another group that I looked into that wasn't such a good group called the Veil of Bride or some kind of secular
A bunch
band.
of them, yeah.
That's sort of an emo metal
Yes.
that, I hate to be confused with those guys, but anyway.
But you know what? It got me thinking. If somebody looks into that band but then they run across you, and that's going to bring up my next question. So I'm going to kind of give my backstory of how I came to be a fan of Bride. I grew up always in Christian schools, so I'd say it was probably about 1991. I was a freshman, I believe, in high school. And one of the first videos that our Christian school wanted all the teenage boys, especially, to see was the danger of secular music. And so they would say, stay away from WASP. That stands for We Are Satan's People. And KISS, that's Knights in Satan's Service. And AC/DC, Antichrist, Devil's Children.
Yeah.
What it did is it just drove us kids into looking into that music. And so I actually ended up really liking the sounds of Metallica. But with their darker themes, it kind of made me feel more depressed than anything. And then my mom, you know, praise the Lord for moms, okay? Because she was like, look, we're going to Gospel Land in Carbondale, Illinois. And she's like, you're going to pick out a group you think would be good. And Kinetic Faith was on the shelf. And I was like, hey, this looks pretty good. These guys can help with my Christian angst. I think I'm gonna try them out. I fell in love. I
Oh, well,
loved it. It had that grit. It had everything. That's why it's right here. That's such a great album. I even have cassettes back here from back in the day
Wow.
just to prove, hey. But yeah, personally, it just lifted my spirits, and the fact is that's a testimony of pretty much how I came to know your band. And my question here is, have you ever heard from any other listeners to your music that have a similar background or story when they were younger or even middle aged, at how they became fans?
yeah, we've had thousands of stories like that.
Yeah, we get stories like that all the time. And what impresses me is when somebody says, "I've been a fan for 20 years, but I never contacted you until now," and they're like, we have all your material, but I just thought now was the time I might introduce myself. It's like after 20 years.
Yeah, when we started, there was no internet. There was no CDs. Hard to believe, but everything was released on album and vinyl. And Dale was working with the band full time. That was his full time job, and he would answer every piece of fan mail that came in. And we had boxes and boxes and boxes of them. I feel bad, but eventually we had to throw them away. Because you just can't store things like that in perpetuity. But there was, and now it's email, or messenger, so people can send you quick messages and you can respond like hundreds of times in a day. You don't have to, save envelopes and write and stamp, and and it's free to communicate. So back in the day, it was quite the procedure, but now it's made easy. So we hear thousands of stories like what you've mentioned.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And it's funny. One of the things that we do as a family is, I'm a sucker for an old 1980s sitcom, and we've been through a lot of the ones we really liked, and we just got done going through one called Growing Pains with Kirk Cameron, which he's got such a background in Christianity now.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to see as a Sunday school teacher, too. But basically, there's an episode where they get to meet I guess the kid's name's Ben, was it? Yeah. And he gets to meet his fan, and it's one of the first appearances on TV with Brad Pitt, and he plays this rock star. And they get to meet their fan, and he's so disappointed when he finds out the guy's a jerk and everything. But I'll be honest, I know you guys at least a little bit. This is the first time face to face that we've ever talked, but so far I'm going to be like, yeah, these guys are legit. These guys are pretty good. But you answered the next question on how that resonated with you, and how it's been a ministry for you. But being able to get all that encouragement over the years has probably really helped And to be honest, I don't know if you looked it up or have ever seen this, but there is a rise of YouTube videos that do reactions. And I think the kid's name is Isaiah Kirkpatrick, I believe. And he does a reaction video to your song Heroes.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it when I'm watching the kid, and the kid's just sitting there like, this is good music, and he's just bopping and so basically, you know, I grew up pretty much with Southern gospel music. My mom used to play it all the time, and I'll be honest, as a kid, I was a little tortured by it. But then, as I got older, I went back to it, and I'll listen to the Imperials or the Happy Goodmans or some of those old groups, and I always think to myself, man, it's like so weird how I went through Southern gospel and now Bride being my central band. I am curious, and our listeners would probably love to know about your current listening habits. I don't know if you just, most people probably don't listen to their own music. So maybe you don't just, why I'm in the band Bride, I only listen to Bride. I'm sure you listen to other bands, but basically what music resonates with you at this time?
When we're recording an album, you listen to yourself so much you get sick of yourself. So we're getting ready to have these releases come out this week probably, and so you just get so tired of listening to yourself. So yeah, you don't do that very often. Sometimes you'll go back and pick up a tune, but I'm kind of into like 70s yacht rock music right now. Sad but true,
I have to. I have to listen to something other than metal because that's all I do is metal. So I don't mind putting something on like Leonard Cohen or Tom Waits or even at times I'll want to listen to some David Bowie and just something artsy. Sometimes it's just there's a band called Sigur Rós from Iceland, and it's very atmospheric, very very ethereal. Just it's music with a voice, but he's speaking Icelandic, so I don't know what he's saying. But it's just this beautiful blend. It's like you just kind of get carried along with the current. But once in a while, I'll go back and revisit some of the old metal, especially if we're about to do an album or something. I'll pop on things that have influenced me, like Dio or
Carrie Levigan, Seeds of Change.
Yeah,
Dio. Yes.
And then just something nice and heavy that reminds me of what I'm supposed to be doing in my musical career.
And then I don't know, I'm not for sure. We're friends on Facebook, obviously.
Yes.
So you have probably seen Dale and I. We've done almost 100 remakes of classic rock songs.
Yes,
So
I actually have seen quite a few, and it's honestly very impressive. And one thing I think about that is if somebody's even trying to look up that music and then they see a band covering it and they think these guys have some talent. I wonder what other kind of music
Right.
that they've got, and that can be a way to usher people into,
Right.
experience God's presence. And to be quite honest, a lot of people go, well, Matt, I feel more moved by praise and worship music. I listen to, the Church of the Highlands or one of those big, moving. I'll be honest, guys, I've been moved by the Holy Spirit listening to even your music, even growing
Yeah.
up. I mean, and I just want you to know as a testimony,
There's a difference between music dealing with your emotions, which a lot of that stuff, really is very emotional music. That's a physical thing versus a spiritual thing.
Yes. Also too, I was touching on the YouTube people and seeing these young people. When you're at a concert, what demographic do you see? Do you notice a big range, or is it like kind of older people like myself? Do you see a lot of younger people like him, or is it just a range?
Well, it's probably more like 40 to 60, I would think, is the majority male, of course. And it's according also, like if we go to Brazil, I think the audience might be a bit younger than it is here in the States. But our audience that remembers us from the old days, they're aging.
And you'll see 2 or 3 generations show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I mean, like seeing your son is very inspirational to us. That I thought, well, we've lost that generation completely. I guess they'll be stuck in some stuffy old church somewhere listening to church music. But no, I mean, He's on the right track.
Yeah.
Well, and to be honest, we would work out together, and I have a bride playlist that's on YouTube. That's I've got your songs in, and we're working out to it. We're pumping some iron, and he's like, "Who is this?" And I'm like, "It's Bride." I let him kind of discover it. Yeah, maybe I'd play it sometimes, and he'd be like, "What is that?" But one thing I want to give you guys credit for, because you say metal, but Bride's discography showcases an impressive range from the thrash kind of sound to Live to Die album to the even acid rock sound of Speaking to the Machine. Bluesy tracks like Same Old Sinner and Everybody Knows My Name, ballads such as Goodbye and I Miss the Rain, the grunge sound in Worm, even a little touch, and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but even a touch of hip hop slash rap in Evil Dreams, which you pulled off, by the way. So, how has Bride's musical evolution reflected the changing times over the years? Because when I would listen to stuff like, I think Neil Young has an album that's like right in that disco era, and it don't even sound like Neil Young, and I'm like, this is just terrible. And I'm just like, no offense, he's very popular, but you guys still kind of stick to what you know. But I'll be honest, as a fan, you have such a great range. And so, how has that basically been for you over the years? And maybe even looking ahead, what are the thoughts that you think could be for a Christian music industry, and what might be next for Bride specifically?
I think that the bottom line with Bride is Troy's groove is that we always try to write songs around the groove and around a hook and something memorable. Writing lyrics is not hard for me because it's just I write constantly, like every day. But it's finding the right combination of words to go with that groove. And I think that with this new album that's being released, Vipers and Shadows, I think that's going to be an end of an era for Bride. We've already started discussing what we're going to do next. So, sort of to answer that last part of your question, we're going to change gears a bit, and I think we're going to go very raw. You'll notice in the last 4 albums they are heavily produced. They are
lots of production, lots of vocals, lots of guitar.
A lot of thickness in there. So we were listening back to some of our demo tapes, and we really like the sound and the rawness and the genuine
because it was
authenticity.
Live almost,
yeah. So we were playing. We just go to the studio and plug in. We had rehearsed the songs. It's plug up and record, and that's basically how all the Lost Reels came about. Is songs that we were rehearsing for an album. We recorded them before we actually recorded them, and then we would release the. And a lot of those songs, very few overdubs, if any. And that's Troy compared it to like the first Van Halen album, where it was just three guys playing music and Diamond Dave singing. And when Eddie took a solo, the only thing beneath him was a bass and drums, and no rhythm guitar. So I think that unless we change and do the hip hop thing, I think the future looks like down the road, maybe a year or two before we release another album. It'll be raw.
Well, we've had a lot of people complain that we change styles too much. If you listen to like whatever an AC/DC or a comparable Christian band, whatever, and every album is so predictable. I compare that to like a painter who paints the same bowl of fruit every single time. It's a good picture, but it's like it's the same bowl of fruit, maybe with a different piece of fruit in it, But what we try to do is what we feel.
I guess we're fearless like that because even though we know that somebody's not going to like this song because we know we got these hardcore, they say, oh, the first 3 Bride albums were the best and everything after that was junk. We don't care. We will still write what we feel like we should be writing, trendy or not.
And all of those had their place in time, but I don't want to do Live to Die again.
Right. There's some songs we refuse to play, and some songs we play that we hate to play live. But they're expected. After you play a song 500 or 600 times, that song is wore out.
Yeah. But we still do them.
We still do them.
Oh yeah, and I bet at concerts they're like, heroes, heroes, and everybody's gonna have that with that,
Yeah.
Which speaking of that, is there any Bride songs that you're like, okay, if I gotta do Everybody Knows My Name one more time, they all know my name, okay? I don't need to be doing this song anymore. I mean, do you ever feel that kind of repetition in concerts or anything like
Yeah,
that?
but when you get up there and everybody's screaming for it, and you can play it without thinking, you can disengage your mind from your motor skills.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, because you really don't have to concentrate. You can be anywhere mentally and still perform those songs.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Except for me, which I need my lyric sheets. As older I get, the less I remember. So
you guys are still young, let me tell you. And like I said, we've got your live from Brazil back here, and you mentioned all these other bands. I remember growing up too. I kind of liked Guns N' Roses back in the day until I heard them live later on after Axl blew out his whatchamacallit, which you've had a bout with that, but before I get into that, you mentioned touring with Petra. We actually, because we work a lot, me and him. He actually works with me at my other job too. But we were able to go to in Marion, Illinois. Petra sold out their 50-year, their 50 years of music, and that was one of his first really good rock concerts that I was able to take. So Petra did a Praise album, and I'm thinking now, have you guys thought about possibly a Praise album like that, but putting a Bride spin on it, or no? Yeah.
It really bums me out. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's jumping off a cliff music for me.
And it works for some people. Like I said, it connects with them emotionally, or some people spiritually, whatever. But it bums me out. It's like, and we were joking around the other day, and I hate to say this on an interview, but Dale pulled up some AI program and told it to write a song. Because we never use AI for our music, obviously, but it sounded just like everything that's out there. It was that good, that polished, and that generic.
Yep.
I had a guy tell me that he hired LA musicians to play on his album, and he had been working on it for 2 years. And the second I heard it, I knew it was all AI.
Yeah, you can tell.
There was nothing of him in it. There was no humans in it. It was really good.
Really good.
I mean, I was just like, wow,
and
these are
polished,
great.
And I mean, just
and there was
perfect.
20 perfect songs, and it was sickening. Sickening.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, but I got to ask, so this is an interview. But also, what I was mentioning, this is for Dale, do you have any, for any aspiring singers or screamers who admire to your vocal style, do you have any key tips or advice that you could share? Also, could you tell us more about when you experienced your lacerated vocal cords prior to recording Fistful of Bees album?
I always prided myself on the guy that could get up on stage and do anything that I wanted to do. And I would get up and do what Jerry, our old drummer, he called vocal acrobats. So I would get up and I would be the circus freak doing the vocal thing. And there came a time when it hurt. And there came a time where it cracked. And it hurt and it cracked. And I really had to strain to get there. So it wasn't fun to sing for a while. Matter of fact, it was painful. But one show, we were backstage and the promoter came up and there was a group of us. I don't know who all was back there, stage hands, everybody. It seemed like there was quite a few people backstage. We were about to go on stage and he said, before we pray, is there any prayer requests? And I said, yeah. I said, I've got this vocal thing. They're saying that, they got to operate and I won't be able to sing anymore. So if they operate, my vocal cords are gone. And so we prayed and I didn't feel a thing. It wasn't like, whoa, didn't slay the spirit or nothing weird like that. I just went out and did the show pain-free, and it was healed instantly. And I was diagnosed with a lacerated vocal cord, the nodes, everything that you could possibly do to your throat. I had done it, and have had no problems since. And that was right after the Fistful of Bees. That's why on Fistful of Bees, there's very few, big screams and stuff. And that is also one of the reasons that we did what we did. We had to work around my limitations. There's certain things I just, I could pull off at the time, but it would have been a different album otherwise. I'm glad we did it because it showed our more versatility. I don't know what versatility is, but anyway, it's a new word I've invented. You can use it anytime, drop it whenever you need to.
It's been interesting because like Fistful of Bees and Drop and some albums like that, it's amazing. We release it and then all of the critics pan it. They're like, this is the dumbest thing we've ever heard in our lives. We hate it. We hate it. We hate it. And then 2 years later, these people will call us literally back and say, the Drop album. Yeah, I gave that another listen and man, it's my favorite album now. And we're like, thanks for the support back when we first released it. It's like you need to listen to it more than once.
We were almost destroyed after the Drop album. People had this anticipation, they had an expectation, and we gave them Drop, which was a brilliant album. But that wasn't what they were expecting. So it was a shock. But once they realized what it was, then we got all those responses back saying, "Oh, we're so
Sometimes
sorry."
It took years for people to say, "Man, you know what? I misjudged that album. I'm sorry." And we're like,
"Thank you." You don't say.
Well, praise the Lord for your testimony on that and giving God the glory. I mean, the Bible does say all things work together for good to them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And you guys are. And the fact is, you might have thought at that time, why, Lord, this album people are criticizing, but it turned out for good, just like the Bible says. So that's one great thing to look at.
We always bounce back. I used to always say that the naysayers and the people that came against us, where are they now? Those in the beginning, what happened? Are they even in the faith anymore? Are they still believers? Have they fallen away?
We're the Christian bad penny. We just keep coming back.
Yeah, we're the bad penny. We just keep coming back. It's like, there it is. Yeah,
and that happens, guys. And but my next question for Troy is pretty much similar. If you have any, I guess you'd say advice or anybody out there that wants to pick up the guitar, I play a little bit. My grandmother could play piano by ear, and I can play a little bit by ear. And I saw one of your videos a while back on YouTube where you're showing the chords on a piano.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about chords, but my sister is literally a classical musical. I mean, she went through all the lessons, and I was offered that, and I, teenager was like, I don't have time for that. No, girls, so I wasn't really wanting to learn piano. Yeah. And then one day they ducked out of the room and they heard somebody playing piano, and the teacher and her just looked over, and there I am just playing some song, and they were like, "Oh, that sickens me, that kind of talent going to waste." But you, Troy, play so many different. I know you play the violin, you do all these different instruments. Do you have any advice for anyone out there that would like to know some of your tips or any pieces of advice for them to get motivated or get started? You're never too young, never too old to start something, I really believe. So
yeah, for sure. It's easier if you start young. I mean, I started violin when I was 7, and then I went on to play, cello, guitar, piano, mandolin, all whatever. But once you get to a certain point with your skill level, you have to have a certain level. It doesn't take long to learn guitar. I mean, really, to where you're at a basic level. Every time I pick up a guitar, I try to write a song. Every time I practice. That's what I'm interested in, is being a songwriter. It's like, what new riff can I come up with? Of course, if we're practicing for a show, you're playing this. But anytime, I just don't sit and run scales anymore. I know my scales. I'm never going to be, Yngwie Malmsteen. I could practice and practice and practice, but I'm not interested in being that fast. I want to write a hook. I want to write something memorable. And 5,000 notes in 20 seconds is impressive, but it's not memorable. So I want to write, something that people like, Would You Die For Me? One of the simplest 3 chords in the world, but I think it sticks, that type of thing. So every time you pick up an instrument, whatever you play, try to write a song, try to write a hook, try to be creative.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I mean, sometimes we might even do you ever find that you get like a happy accident? Like you're just playing something, you're like, hey, that might do good. Let me send that to Dave. You can come up with some words.
Yeah, that's how all ideas,
if we're sitting in the same room and Troy's jamming on something and working on a song, he may not even know what he did. And I'm like, stop, do that again. I said, that's the one. And then he'll be like, okay, let's work on that one then. And I'm like, that's going in the
Because you
song.
can't explain it. Your fingers are operating independent of where you're trying to put them. You're not thinking, okay, first finger, first string, second, third fret. You're not thinking that. Your fingers are operating independent of your, awareness. And then you'll hit on things like that. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But you're not, there's no way you can think that fast and prod it out. Maybe composers of old would sit down with their pencil and stuff. But I mean, when you're playing an instrument, your fingers are they're doing what they do, and you work on some things.
It, like you said earlier, even when you play some of the same stuff at your concerts, but it's almost like muscle memory, where you're just like, yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem. And I'll be honest, I wanted to learn guitar in my teenage years, but no patience, of course. And I get one of those DVDs from Walmart, and I'm like, oh, chords, that's easy. But then when the guy starts moving on to other, I'm like, nah. But it takes diligence and practice, obviously. But some people are very gifted with both of you are. But speaking of concerts, have you ever with touring, maybe even with other bands, have you basically seen any kind of consistent temptations of being on the road? Because you hear a lot of horror stories almost sometimes with bands that, you know, run across just so much sin and so much problems being on the road, even in the Christian industry. Did you ever run into anything like that on
Yeah, that's about it.
Fast food.
fast food?
Yeah, Wendy's.
Yeah, we've always
Yeah.
had a pretty good focus. We have heard about other bands having issues and seen the fallout from some of that, but that's never been our.
We never had the energy.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking more when you were younger, but yeah, I understand. I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. So basically, one of your testimonies, Dale, of following your prayer to be used by God, which you felt opened doors for more work. New Zealand became a significant part of your journey. So what was it about New Zealand that called you, and what led you to that part of the world exactly?
A blonde.
Yeah, that can happen. That's
Yeah. It was 2013, and it was New Year's Eve, and I'm sitting at home, empty house, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm just chatting with whoever wants to chat, and I see this picture of this girl. I was like, yeah, poke, you back then you'd poke everybody,
Yeah,
Sometimes they poke you back, and sometimes they wouldn't. I don't even know if it's a feature now, but
it is. Yeah. I don't
yeah,
think anyone does it, but we're
yeah.
showing age a little bit here. But
Well, she poked me back, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I start typing to her, and she types me back, and she knew who I was, and she wasn't on my friends list or anything. And she said, "Yeah, I've got your Silence Is Madness album." I'm like, "Really? That's cool." So we started talking, and that talk lasted about 8 months. Oh yeah. So that talk lasted about 8 months, and I went to see her in New Zealand, and I come back and sold everything I had. Me and Troy, we loaded up probably 2 or 3 trailer loads of my stuff and took to Goodwill, and yeah, and then that was that. And in 2014, January, February, March, April the 4th, 2014. My wife and I, or my girlfriend and I, got married. We were calling her girlfriend then, but we've been married for 11 years. So that's what took me there. And, I worked in New Zealand for all that time. I had 3 different jobs I was at, and loved it. And if there was a chance of me retiring in New Zealand, I would have stayed. But because of the cost of everything, average price of a house is $1 million. Average income on that, you have to have at least 2 people working, making 60 grand a year each, in order to sustain any type of living. And it's a socialistic place. The government, they did me okay. I had 5 surgeries while I was there, all paid for by the government. But you go on a waiting list and stuff. So the bad thing is, if you're in dire shape, you might have to wait a year or 2. You just kind of take a number, take a seat. So there was no chance for me to retire in New Zealand. And I needed to get back. I got boys I haven't seen, 3 boys hadn't seen, grandkids, I think if you count the step grandkids, there's like 9 now or something like that. And Troy and I,
we continued to work throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, we
long distance.
We made it work. But I think when we're sitting in that same room now, we got more energy. We've got more. I love our last albums. I think they were brilliant. But I think that what we're going to do now is going to be something out of this world.
Yeah, because I mean, I would write a riff and I'd have to send it, and they're on opposite times. Dale wouldn't respond for a day, whereas like now we can get immediate feedback.
I could wake him up in the middle of the night. Troy, you away?
Yeah, go away.
Yeah, he's like, why did I let my brother move in to my
those videos that we shot that's on Facebook that we did, almost 100. Dale's in New Zealand in all of them, and we use green screens and put him wherever we shoot on location. Just interesting.
Yeah, there's so much content out there, and your YouTube channel, everything I follow, and I'm always delighted to see. And I've not that long ago I saw some of your older concerts being posted, and I was like, oh wow, this is so cool. This is like a treasure chest of Bride that's been put online. But going back a little bit, considering how a band like King's X has garnished so much respect and fandom from secular artists with groups like Anthrax, Pearl Jam, and Living Colour, has Bride also found a fan base within a non-Christian music circles? And over the years of making music for Jesus, what are some of the testimonies that maybe you've heard from listeners that were particularly touched by Christian music, that they just always seemed like they wanted to fill that God hole, but they were filling it with other music, and then they came across your music? Is there anybody you could mention?
I've got one story which is quite cool. Out of nowhere, this guy sends me a message, and he said, my name is Chris Irvine. You might know me as Chris Jericho. And he said, I'm a huge fan of your band. And I'm like, right. So I'm sure of it, because Chris Jericho was one of my favorite wrestlers. He was a bad guy, and I always rooted for the bad guys. And so I said, no, whatever, and he's saying, no, I really am. He said, send me your phone number and I'll call you. So I sent this anonymous person my phone number, and he calls, and I could tell right away it was Chris Jericho because of the energy and, hey Dale, how's it going, man? His Canadian accent. And, and to me, that was a testimony that we were actually reaching people beyond what we thought. If somebody like Chris Jericho, and even Greg Martin of the Kentucky Headhunters wrote us years ago and said, I read about you in the paper. Very inspiring to see you guys doing Christian music and doing Christian rock. And then Greg and I, Greg and all of us have become friends. I'll probably see him in a couple of weeks, and we'll have some barbecue or something.
Chris Jericho came to church with us.
Yeah, he actually came to
Louisville, came to church. Cool. We went out to eat at Gaddy's, and everybody recognized him. Yeah. And he didn't look anything like a wrestler. His hair pulled back, wearing glasses, and everybody's like, "Can we have your autograph?" And we're like, and I didn't watch wrestling. I had no idea who this guy was or how famous he was. And I'm like, wow, people in Mr. Gaddy's in Podunk, Kentucky is recognizing this dude. So anyway,
you never know who's listening to your music, because a lot of people will never ever contact you. Right. It's like, I don't send fan letters to bands, so they don't know how much I appreciate what they do. Like Tom Waits. Tom Waits to me is the greatest singer it's ever sang, and one of the greatest storytellers, and like almost a Bob Dylan type. And I've never tried to reach out to Tom Waits. He'll never know what his music means to certain people. So I would same imagine, us, I think it would be the same with us or any band.
So I would say right now to our audience, we encourage you, reach out to Dale and Troy.
Send money.
It's like a drug, isn't it? It's almost like a drug, knowing you guys encouraged me, but if you don't speak out and tell these guys, they're never going to know, just like they're saying. So I encourage everyone that might run across this through Christian Magazine, or on YouTube, or if you just happen across this, reach out, leave a comment, let them know. Keep going, guys. You're doing an awesome job. Which brings me to my next question, Dale. You've been involved with approximately around 20 different bands, which is remarkable, especially with different frontmen's clashing and everything. What are the most, I guess, contrasting or unique experiences that you've had with these collaborations that you could tell us about?
Well, I'm not going to name all the bands just because I'm going to leave some out accidentally, but I will mention that working with Miles Barfield, I was able to do things way outside of my normal wheelhouse. We did a Dapster Gentleman, which was not my best work, but I was able to do 3 or 4 albums with Dapster Gentleman. It was more of a college style rock band. We did Iron 501, which was a hard rock band without guitars, only bass and drums. Yeah. And every story that I wrote was true. It was a historical event. So we did 2 or 3 of those albums, and each story, it was either about a war hero or about a fireman who saved somebody, but all of them were true stories that I wrote about. And then we did one called Haunted No More. And that was almost a spoken word type album with haunting piano in the background. And for me, of all of the ones that I've done, because, I've done a lot of rock music with bands, but that really made me have to become way artsy. And I was able to do a lot of experimentation. So that was 3 projects that stand out in my mind. And Miles and I, we don't work together now. He's got other ventures that he does, but we got that out of our system, and I'm glad that it's out there floating around YouTube now. So,
oh yeah, and I believe God does to kind of take us out of our comfort zone. You mentioned, kind of that artsy, and you're like, well, this isn't really me. But then when you look back on it, you go, I'm glad I did it. I feel like God can call us so far away from what our norm is, and that's okay. I'm experiencing that right now. I've never done an interview. This is new to me. So, I don't know how I compare to any other interviews you might have had. So hopefully it's good so far. What are you thinking?
Yeah,
it's so actually a bit more professional than some that we've done. So yeah. We've done some that the person might as well have been doing dishes while they were talking to us.
Hey, no, we've made sure to try to, do our best here. I always say I do my best. I let God do the rest. That's
yeah.
One thing to do. So one thing too, when I Whiskey Seed, when I look that up, Kerry Livgren's is, if I'm saying that right, I believe he was instrumental in Kansas, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that have anything to do with inspiring your song Whiskey Seed?
Definitely the title, because that was the album that got me personally into Christian rock. After I heard Ronnie James Dio sing Mask of the Great Deceiver.
Yes, I was going to bring that up next.
I was just like, I want to be like that guy. I want to sound like him, because hands down, the very best. And I basically bargained with God. I was like, I will do this thing called heavy metal if you help me out here a bit.
Because we grew up playing Southern gospel music.
Yeah,
that's what we grew up singing and playing, and bluegrass was where our roots were. So metal made no sense, and our first attempts at it were horrendous. So,
yeah. I'd actually tried out for a couple of Christian heavy metal bands back in the day, and they turned me down. So we were like, you can't do this.
I did the same thing. I tried to play for some other Christian bands around.
They wouldn't have us.
Well, actually, Dale, I believe it was a little short-lived, but I think you were going to possibly be Michael Sweet's replacement for Stryper at one point. Can you talk about that a little bit on what that was like?
Well, yeah, briefly, it was we had just toured with Stryper, and we were in our prime. We were the best live band going at the time. So Michael was leaving, and they saw us play, and said, "Dale, would you like to sing for Stryper?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll give it a go." And I did, but it wasn't meant to be. Love the guys in Stryper. They took care of us like brothers. They were right there. And we've seen them since. They've always been top people that and we're going to tour with them again in July. We're going to go to Brazil and tour with Stryper in July. But yeah, it was a great experience for me, and I'm glad that I didn't stay, because I'd hated to get fired since Michael wanted back in. So that would have been bad. So I'm glad I come back in. I think at that point we did Silence is Madness, I think.
Wow. Yeah. So that's just such a great journey you guys have had. And you brought up Brazil. So, you have a significant fan base in Brazil. What do you attribute to your popularity there? And do you guys speak any other language? Because sometimes if I look up Bride and I'll
Yeah.
see people speaking different languages and I have to
Yeah.
like Google Translate, what's this guy saying,
Yo soy entiendo español.
Un poco de, ¿cómo está ustedes? Muy bien. No me gusto, dolor de cabeza, no te gusto. That's about it,
All right,
and maybe a
good.
couple bad words that I will never
We
say.
should have learned Portuguese as many times as we've been to Brazil, but we called the promoter down there Pastor Steve. He later wanted to be called Apostle Stephen, and he had a huge church in Brazil, and he had us down for the SOS festival, and we thought that it was going to be ridiculous because he had us come down and he took us into a foot, they call it football, soccer stadium, and it would hold 130,000 people. And he's like, "Oh, the stadium will be full. And we'll be doing this." And people's been walking around the building for 30 days praying around it. And we're like, "Oh man,
We're like, yeah,
yeah,
right.
you're going to lose your shirt on this dude. I cannot.
You're going down, dude.
You're going to be so disappointed when 100 people won't even fill the front of the stage." And we showed up, and there's 100,000 people.
Wow.
And we're like, so he's the one that we attribute to helping us make our name in Brazil. We did the SOS festival several years and played in his church and stuff like that. And then after that, we did independent tours in Brazil. But by far, the shows that he put on were sponsored. They're kind of sponsored by the government as well. He had governmental help. The governor of Sao Paulo would be at the show, our show and stuff like that.
We met congressmen and governors and mayors, and sometimes we didn't even know that we were playing a political event. We don't, people thought, I guess, we were on the side of whoever was running for what.
Because they had announced this, and
we didn't know. We just were playing shows.
Yeah. But he had us out, but he would always raise money for the homeless, and they would do all kinds of things like that, and that's why the government was helping, sponsor the event. But yeah, he's responsible for our Brazilian popularity.
That is great. Talk about being Jesus's hands and feet. You guys actually can save. It's just so amazing, with your journey and everything too. Which brings me to my next question, Dale. You're doing, I believe we can pre-order some of your books online. So I've got a question about your writing and everything. When you sit down to write a song or a short story, what are some go-to methods or things that consistently help you to get creative juices flowing and bring your ideas to life?
Writing lyrics is different than writing stories. Writing lyrics, you don't have a lot of space to say what you're saying. So a lot of it is just, for me, is implied, hoping that the listener catches it or finds some meaning in what you're trying to say. I always think a lot of times my lyrics are abstract poetry, and there's more than one meaning if you really want to dig into it. Whereas the stories, you sort of have to start with a theme and a plot, and have a character that you want to build on, a theme that you want to build on. And but I let the stories unfold. I never know what the end is going to be until I get there. And then sometimes I get to the end and I'm like, oh, I'm done. I've written it. It's finished. Because you're in that creative juices flow. But the stories the main stories that I write are more horror, terror, scary, mystery, thriller. No guts and blood and nothing like that. But it's more psychological.
Twilight Zone almost.
Yeah. So I try to put a spin on everything that is psychological. Always good versus bad. I try to introduce as much of the gospel within the stories, though they're not Christian stories. These are stories about spooky monsters and weird things in the dark that are there, maybe not. But yeah, the book will be out in September. It's Tales to Terrify. Is that it? Tales to Terrify? Yeah, I think it is. And that wasn't my original title. So there's 3 books going to come out. The first one's in September. So anybody that's interested in reading really good short stories, 5,000 to 8,000 words each.
And it's under your pen name.
And it's under my pen name, P.D. Thompson.
P.D. Thompson.
Or Philip Dale Thompson, yeah. So I did that because I'm a H.P. Lovecraft fan.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
He said HP, so I said PD. Anyway,
not P Diddy, PD.
Yeah, not P Diddy. Lord.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the book and stuff. But the music and my, like, especially like with the book, I write straight through. Very seldom do I go back and do a lot of changes, except just making punctuation and stuff better. But in writing a song, I might write it 3, 4, 5 times according to what Troy has musically. So I might have a set of lyrics, but they're not finished until Troy.
And some things don't work out rhythmically. It's like, man, you can't fit that line in this.
Yeah.
It's too long, too many syllables, unless we.
And Troy's good at helping me to shorten lines and not say less means more sometimes. So.
Well, that was my next question actually for Troy on how do you, when you sit down to compose music and you're orchestrating everything and thinking it out, do you see it big picture wise, or do you do like him and just kind of go through it? And then sometimes maybe you guys even surprise yourself at the end and you're like, wow, that actually, hopefully if you're writing a short story though, you might be like, well, I'm not sure how this is going to end, but it's there's a process, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So how do you guys kind of have a process when it comes to
we
that?
do. I'll start off. Dale always has lyrics, so I'll start off and I will write a hook, and I turn it into what I call a verse and a chorus. And I send that to Dale and say, "You got anything you can use with this? Do you like it?" And if he sends me back something, if I don't like it, he doesn't question. He's like, "Okay, we won't do it." And if he doesn't like what I've done, I'm like, "Okay," we just trust each other's judgment, like if it's going to work or not. So, and then if he likes the verse and chorus, then I'll send him 3 over and over, 3 verses and choruses together, and then maybe I'll work on a bridge. And I think it's important if you do music that you do understand a little bit of theory of music. I've studied the actual music of music my whole life, so it's like it's like songs in a minor key, and you want to change it. Well, you maybe do the major, the relative major. Maybe you do so you build a bridge, you build a musical section, but that stuff just seems to come really easy for me. Just like lyrics come easy for Dale, writing music is just really easy. That's why whenever we did this last album, Vipers and Shadows, it has 20 songs on it, and we had 10 songs left over. And
Wow.
So that's why we did and we finally got these in today, the Lost Reels 4. So this, the other CDs haven't been shipped from the manufacturer yet. We'll get them soon. They've been shipped, but they're not here. But we're like, we could write, no joke, an album every 2 months.
Wow.
But
wow.
the fan base won't accept it. You saturate yourself so much that people, it's like
He'll accept it. We're Brad fans. You can.
It's kind of like in the 80s when Phil Collins was everywhere. Every song that came on the radio was like, my goodness, can't he do something else? Maybe take up, painting or something.
We were massive Phil Collins fans because I think he's got a really great vocal and great songs. But man, there was just come a time in the 80s where I could not listen to Phil Collins no more.
That can happen to us. So you can only do an album about every 18 months. Yeah. And that's it. But so that's why we do all these extra remake songs and all these videos. And Dale has all these extra projects. And we did a bluegrass and a Christmas album. And we did we stay really busy because for us, it's really easy to do this stuff. It's kind of like in Good Will Hunting, how that guy could do math. He's like, this is just so easy for me. It's like, why is it, So anyway, but people just won't accept.
We don't struggle to write songs. That's we've struggled more to build our fan base than write songs.
Yeah.
Just finding, the one thing that people don't understand is we've never had investors. I know that like some bands will do a GoFundMe and raise $90,000. We do a GoFundMe and you get nickels and dimes. So we don't know the formula behind any of that stuff. We're just pretty much 2 guys in a glorified garage band, and we like it like that. I mean, if somebody wants to pitch us some money to help us with an album, that's great.
Yeah, because people don't understand the cost involved with doing an album. I mean, we have our own studios now, so that helps us. But there's still a huge amount of production that goes into things, and we ship all of this stuff. We've been sending it to Brazil, and
nobody knows the work that goes in when you're doing it like we're doing it. It's I mean, I'm not saying nobody does, but the fans don't know. The other bands do because they're doing exactly what we're doing. When you break it down, bands, Sacred Warrior and Fear Not and White Cross and all these guys, I mean, they're all in the same boat we are. We're hoping somebody will give us a lead on a show. They're waiting for us to give them a lead on a show. I've had some calls. Hey, can you get us to Brazil? I'm like, I don't know. Let me see. You know, so it's we're the market is shrank so much, but it's still alive. It's got a pulse. Yeah. So we just need to resurrect it now. Get it completely up out of the ground again where it was at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely could see the struggle with all this. I mean, back in the day, you had people like Pure Metal that could actually front all the money, put you on the road. You make most of your money on tour. Nowadays, you got Spotify, and you said it kind of, nickels and dimes here and there. Oh, somebody clicked my music, I got a penny, and it's a struggle. But you guys have been doing this over 40 years, and to be honest, you come to Marion, Illinois, where Petra came. Me and him are there for sure. We're getting the expensive seats. Maybe even some backstage. I'm just messing.
Yeah. They should have said the owner's name. We'll contact him.
Yeah, I would love it. Yeah, talk to Petra. They came to Marion. That was about 2 years ago, and it was almost sold out. And we got to meet the band. I'll plug him a little bit. He has a graphic design degree, and he did a Jekyll and Hyde music video that he put up on YouTube, and showed the band, and they were impressed by it. So it was pretty cool. So you ever need a little bit of, we both work a lot, but you ever need a little bit of help with something, I'm sure there's fans out there that would love to reach out that might even be able to help with the process, and, but Troy and Dale will be honest and say, you're no good. I don't like the artwork you're turning in. It's not going to happen.
Well, it's a lot of people are really good, but you got to have the same vision and artistic style. A lot of people have submitted stuff to us. It's fantastic work, but it's not us. So,
Right. Yeah. You got to stay true to yourselves, guys. And that's one thing you've done over the years that's why I think your hardcore fan base has stuck with you over the years, like us. So Dale, back with your writing, I know your vocal style clearly draws inspiration from iconic rock vocalists like Ian Gillan, Bruce Dickinson, the legendary Ronnie James Dio, as you discussed. So who had such a fascinating musical journey himself, by the way, but when it comes to your mystery and horror short stories, like I picked this up, okay? Frankie Perret.
Oh, yeah.
Darkness.
Yeah, I've read those, yeah.
So this was his, I think, second book. And, as a kid, this got me onto it. But like you said earlier, without the blood and the guts, some of the most scariest things, Psycho, Anthony Perkins, that was terrified me as a kid. I was like, and back then, you had the I guess Friday the 13th, the slashers. Yeah, the slashers. And, but that scared me. But even this, and so I can't wait to read some of your stuff. And, so basically, who influenced you to start with stuff like, your
horror? I've always read. I used to be an avid reader of sci-fi, so I was really into, like Ray Bradbury and what's his name, Smith. But anyway, I can't remember his name now. But somehow or the other, I started reading some H.P. Lovecraft, and I read a Dorian Gray, ghost story of Dorian Gray's, and that was written so well. Then I started just getting more and more into some of the other authors, Algernon Blackwood and Arthur Metcham, and just people like that. Some of my favorite is the late 19th century writers, people that probably had 10 times the struggle as we do today. So you take the Edgar Allan Poe's, he couldn't even get published for a while. And I actually have a short story. It's not in this series, but I have a short story about what it would have been like for Edgar Allan Poe as a boy, growing up, and the demons he faced, and the nightmares that he had growing up. So it's called The Boy Poe. So it'll be out eventually. But yeah, those type of writers, the Dean Koontz and the Stephen Kings are brilliant and all that, but I don't read those stories; they're too modern for me. But one woman that is more modern than somebody like H.P. Lovecraft, Shirley Jackson, she was a brilliant writer too. So I was inspired by a lot of that. So there's a lot of different. I've got probably 10,000 books on my Kindle, so I got a lot of stuff I can go to. Plus many different versions of the Bible on there as well.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, we're inspired by our music, and the only thing I've not heard like a Southern Gospel Bride type. I wonder what that would sound
At
like.
least one.
Oh, hang on.
Hold on, he'll show you this. We do
Really?
You name it, we've probably done it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I got to definitely look into that. So yeah,
This
that's
is
great.
this is with our dad. He played banjo on it and sang.
Oh wow.
You probably thought that was me in the middle, but it's not.
No, no.
So anyway, you can't buy this one anymore. I'm thinking about putting it on Spotify or something like that. But yeah, you can't buy. We sold out of it, so we don't have any more. Just the few copies around. But I think you can get it digitally, maybe on our website. I'm not for sure. We might be able to send you a digital copy.
I think just 20. Is there 20 songs on there or something crazy?
No, just 13.
Oh, 13. Yeah.
Oh, and actually, the 13th song is me, my wife, and my girls singing a song we wrote called "Sleepy Southern Town." So anyway, you just never know what you're going to run across.
Yeah, that's just great.
Yeah, we Devil went down to Georgia and everything. Like we did all kinds of interesting things.
That's awesome. Yeah. Because I'll be honest, when I was growing up, my parents playing Southern Gospel, I was almost kind of tortured by it, but then I kind of grew to love it.
Yeah.
So I kind of been torturing him with the little Imperials and some of that once in a while to kind of give him a break, and he's like, yeah, he's not a big fan. But anyway, it's been such a pleasure talking with you guys. What do you think will be, you've kind of discussed what's coming up for Bride, but we definitely don't want to end without, letting them know about the new album here. It's called Vipers.
You got a vinyl.
How did you get a vinyl of that?
Wow.
It's just a really good print, but we wanted our audience to know that's why we're here today. We want to kind of express our gratitude for you guys just being so real and being able to sit down with us. And Christian Magazine is happy that you were able to take the time today. And
one other thing. I hate to interrupt you, but I've got a blues album coming out. The Dale Thompson and the Boondogs is the fourth album. I forgot to mention that one. So it's my fourth blues album with the Boondogs. So
nice. Yeah. So how would someone get that? I think it's Bride Pub, or what's the actual address that they could go to support you guys directly? Is it a website, something we can even put in the description of this video?
It's bradpub.com, www.bradpub, like publishing, .com. But I don't think we have the Boondog stuff out there. It's just Bride stuff. So, oops.
Yep. So it's, I don't think I have any of the Boondog stuff to sell.
You have to get it through, who's it, Girder or?
Boondogs went through Retroactive. The new one's on Girder, though.
Yeah. So you'd have to look at they're kind of the main distributors of Christian music now. Retroactive Records, Girder Records, Rocks Records. Those guys are keeping the old flame alive.
Well, that's awesome. This has been such a big day even for us, being fans. But I guess do you have anything you'd like to ask? These guys. This is the new generation. Anything you want to say? Or
well, I got two questions.
Ooh,
sure.
One of them is any of your newer stuff, like Shotgun Wedding or one of those, are those coming to vinyl?
Oh yeah, vinyl. These kids love vinyl. They're all discovering vinyl now.
It's all coming to vinyl. I think Scarecrow Messiah is getting ready to be released by Girder, and then Matt from Retroactive, he's releasing. He just did the Cornerstone Live, and he's going to be doing the new Vipers and Shadows, and so they're all picking up the baton, running with it in terms of vinyl, because it's outselling CDs anymore.
Yeah, it really is. What did you say? You had another?
Oh, yes. And then would you consider doing a concert in the Midwest area?
He wants to go to one of your concerts. We can't make it to Brazil. Okay,
we're playing on the 16th in Ohio, which is still a ways away. It's in Lancaster, Ohio, on the 16th, but that's about the closest we're coming, other than Immortal Fest in August is going to be in Versailles, Ohio. Now would be a neat road trip to take, actually, because they have 3 days. It's a music festival. Us, White Cross, and Saint, Messiah, Prophet, or something. I can't remember all the bands.
Yeah,
all the old bands.
All the old bands will be there. We are actually going to play Western Kentucky in January. That's a little bit further that direction. But what state are you in?
Illinois, right?
Yeah, we live in Murfreesboro, Illinois, and work out of Carmel, Illinois. Yep.
You should make a road trip to Immortal Fest. That is the place to be.
It's a 3-day festival, and it's everybody's there, and it was really cool last year.
And all 3 days is packed with this great band. Sacred Warrior is going to be there, and I think Barren Cross played the first one, so they won't be there. But Triton, I think, is going to be there.
Yeah,
so
and a shout out to the guy that puts that show on. He's promotes it really well. Has an incredible stage with lights, PA. He does a great job with that. It's the MBD Center. What's it called?
BMI
Center in Versailles. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been great, guys, and you did awesome. And once again, would you like to close in prayer? For us while we wrap things up? Would that be okay?
Sure. Yeah. Father, thank you for this time that we've had to be able to share and meet new people. And Father, just continue to encourage all of us to stay busy doing something for you, Lord, and let us be guided by the Holy Spirit at all times. We thank you for this day. It's a wonderful day that we've had. And Father, I just pray that your blessings will be upon us. The angels of the Lord will encamp about us and watch over us as we do your will. In Jesus' name.
All right. Once again, Troy Thompson. I remember Troy Thompson and Dale Thompson. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, guys. And we look forward to everything Bride has in the future, to the next 40 years, right?
Next 40 years.
There you go.
We'll be here.
All right, guys.
Take care.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.